Well, March is one of my favorite times of the year, but this time of year rivals it with all of our college sports championships. I had such a great time watching Women's Lacrosse Championship, Northwestern, and UNC with my little athletes, and there's so many more other great games to come here this month.
Absolutely. Princeton on the men's side beat Notre Dame. Then we have college baseball, college softball, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. I mean, there's just a lot of great coaching going on.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people thinking about who's moving, who's going where. The coaching carousel is going to trickle from the top all the way down, even to the high school level. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I think today's guest will give us some really good insight for breaking into coaching, what it means to be a mentor, and how to be good at your job. So you are back with us. Welcome to the Sideline Ascent podcast. I'm Taryn Sheehan, former Division I coach turned professor, mom, and rec league girls basketball coach.
And I'm Mike Marich, former athletic director, coach, mentor, and someone who believes the people shaping athletes' lives deserve real support too.
Every week, we're bringing you the mentors you wish you had.
The lessons we wish somebody had poured into us. Real conversations that go far beyond X's and O's with mentorship that helps you grow, lead, and truly thrive.
Wherever you coach, on the track, on the court, on the field, or in the classroom, or even if you're just figuring it out as you go, this space is built for you.
Sideline Ascent is brought to you by Mindset Curated at mindsetcurated.com and Morgan Athletics at morganathletics.com. Two organizations committed to elevating coaches and the athletes they serve.
Today, we are joined by Beth Alford-Sullivan, who is one of the most accomplished and decorated coaches in collegiate track and field. Since taking over as director of track and field and cross country at UConn in 2022, she had led the Huskies to a run of dominance rarely seen in the Big East. In just 3 seasons, her teams have swept men's and women's indoor and outdoor Big East championships, produced 179 Big East medals, 58 Big East champions, and earned multiple Big East Coaching Staff of the Year honors. Her 2025 season alone included Northeast Region Men's Coach of the Year, national rankings as high as number 19 for the men, the highest in program history, and 13 athletes qualifying for NCAA championships. On the women's side, she guided Chloe Thomas to a historic year, winning both the Big East and Northeast regional titles and finishing as first-team All-America at the cross-country championships. Before arriving in stores, Beth built a legendary career across the SEC, Big Ten, and Pac-12. At Tennessee, she led the men to third at both the NCAA indoor and outdoor championships and coached 176 All-America honors, 34 SE titles, and 7 Olympians. At Penn State, she won 9 Big Ten team titles, produced more than 150 All-Americans, and became the first woman in SEC history to lead a men's program to a title. Across her career, Beth has coached 14 NCAA individual champions, more than 300 All-Americans, and has earned 34 Coach of the Year honors. She is widely regarded as a trailblazer, the first woman to direct a men's Power 5 track and field program, and a leader who has elevated every team she's touched. Beth, it is an absolute honor to have you with us. I've looked up to you as an athlete, as a fellow coach, and so thankful to have you on here to be a mentor for all the coaches out there listening.
Well, thank you both, Taryn and Mike. The intro was great. It makes me feel really old, but it was, thank you so much for all of that. That was outstanding. And, just appreciate you guys doing this and elevating the mentorship and the experience for coaches from coaches. I think that's just outstanding.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let's go back from the beginning a little bit. The more I did my homework to prepare for this, the more I realized how much of the sport you've actually touched. So for those that don't know, let's start from the beginning about how you got your start in coaching in a very male-dominated field. I mean, I think we've talked about before, right now, women's and men's track and field have the lowest coaching rate of females. It's we got an F on the Tucker report as far as I think it's less than 20% of track and field programs are led by a woman, and less than, I think it's 17% of cross-country programs are also of women's sports led by women. You are one of those women that is moving that needle. So how did you get your start as far as climbing into that path, that's been dominated on the men's side.
Yeah, I didn't intend to do it. I ran at the University of Minnesota. Gary Wilson was my coach. I had a phenomenal experience. I had an extra fall of cross-country eligibility, so I stayed back and finished and graduated up, and I had a job in social work. I was just going to be a social worker. My dad was a coach. My mom was a social worker. That's how they met, so the whole thing. And about a month or so into it, I got a call actually from Wilson that said, hey, can you come be our guest coach? Because I was done in December, so this was like February or something. And I went to a home meet, and he had me give the, speech, I guess, as the guest coach. And of course, it's all my old teammates, but it was an elevated situation, and it was like, wow, that was cool. And then from there, I had a spring. I kind of reduced my hours as a social worker and started coaching high school. And from there, it just went to grad school. And then from grad school, it went to, a very fortunate opportunity early on. After 2 years of grad school, I was offered the head men's and women's cross country coach at Southeast Missouri State. And they had just turned Division I, and that was my break. I was able to come in and coaching men and women, and at a great school with a great history in D2. And from there, I just knew it was my path. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a great college coach. I was a lifer from day one. I never ever thought back in those days, because that was early 90s. I think I was in SEMO 91, 92, 3, somewhere in there. And, I didn't see other women. But I didn't think about it either. I just was doing, and having coached the men at that level, I just went after it. I just thought, if there's not many of us, then I just want to prove myself, and recruited like crazy. I think I signed 7 kids from 7 states that were 7 state champions on the guys' side. And it was, just a breakthrough moment. The next year we were really good. We were almost won our conference meet. I got my first coach of the year, and from there I was done. I knew what I wanted to do, and that was that. So that was my early days. I moved through the ranks and got my second big break when I went out to Stanford. And at that point, I had coached in college 6 years, and was a head coach at a Division II school before that. And, when I went to Stanford, I was tied in with Vin Lanana, and one of the greatest coaches in our sports. His vision was an extreme vision that, was to win the national cross country titles, men and women, on the same weekend, on the same day. And when I saw the vision that he painted, I locked in and we went for it, and it was just one of those opportunities that changed my career and changed who I was as a coach at that moment too. And, it's fun to look back in the history books and see, Terry Crawford was the first woman to win a cross country national title. And, I think I'm the second one in the history books of doing that. And to see the women since then, that have pursued and continued on. And of course, some great women doing it right now that are just amazingly, leading that sport at such a high level. But I was always motivated to push and change the elements, but I kind of did it without especially until my later years, without the desire to really make it known. It was just something I did. I just kind of kept going. In my later years, when I moved from Penn State to Tennessee, is when I really learned the impact that you have as an example. Up until then, I just felt like I worked hard and wanted to be a track coach. So.
Yeah, you pushed the glass ceiling when you took that job at Tennessee. I know you and I have had the conversation of, we were all huddled in our offices when, the announcement came out and your contract. You pushed that glass ceiling for every coach of what it meant to be a track coach, and really the worth and the value of what that potential could be, which was, really incredible for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah.
Beth, through your career, and, you've been able to share a little bit about your origin story, and I appreciate that so much. I'd love to hear if there was, how you've shifted as a coach, maybe from year one to today. Have there been any shifts? Have you approached things differently?
Yeah, no, I think the elements of my style have been pretty consistent. Yeah. I kind of, wherever I've been committed to where I am. And I think, and that's a really good lesson for coaches, because when I'm with coaches or assistant coaches or others, they're looking at the next step. And I think they're really missing the commitment that it takes to be successful in the environment they're in. They're just kind of always like, well, if I do this, then I can get there, and I can do this, I can get there. I never had that. I always was committed, and still am today, to where I am is where I'm working. And if other opportunities knock on the door, that's because you worked hard for it and you stay steady for it. The other thing that I would say, and I alluded to it in the last talk, was I rarely saw other women in my early career. So as my career has moved towards 40 years now in Division I, basically coaching, I have really come to the realization that what you do as one of few is very important. And so I try to do things the way it's needed to be successful, but also in a style that allows it to be unique, and deliver it with an intention, and be intentional in all that we're trying to do as well. The other thing that I've been able to do really well, and Taryn said this, like, I went from Pac-10 to Big Ten to SEC to now I'm in the Big East. I think it's really know your environment and what the goals of your environment are. So starting with the interview process or the interest in the job or whatever it may be, really know that has to line up with where you are in your career as well. You can't use excuses. If you coach in New England, you got to know you're moving to an indoor track for, a couple of months, 4 or 5 months a year. You got to know what you're getting yourself into. You got to understand that, because there's no room for excuses in coaching. And so I think I've done that really, really well, been able to really decide that this is a good move for me at this time in my career, and then be positive about that because I knew the elements that it was going to take.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way to segue to, you've had some incredible mentors throughout your career, people that have touched the sport at so many levels, but you've also been a mentor for many coaches on your staffs. And you talked about this a little bit, so many coaches they're just looking for that next job. They're using the job they have, and they're consistently, it's the summertime, so whose jobs are open, who's making those moves, but what do you think that you've done to really be able to build your staffs where, your staffs do consistently stay together? And when they do move on, they move on to better opportunities and continue to have that success from your coaching tree. What things do you think that, you've been able to take from your mentors, but create your own ways that, is able to really prepare that next generation of coaches or the people under you to go lead programs after, they've worked with you?
Yeah. Thank you for this question. I appreciate it. It's a good point, because I feel like my coaching staff is my group. It's my pack, and it changes, everywhere you go and throughout the time you're there. But my pack are my people, and I just really, really care about them and for them. And it's not without challenge. I mean, hiring and creating the chemistry of a coaching staff is not an easy thing. My mentors were great. I worked I ran under Wilson, where it was his 3 same coaches. He was a women's only program. The 3 coaches were, I don't know, they probably pushed 20 years together at Minnesota, 15, 20 years together. And, so I just had that experience of, they knew each other, they trusted each other, they let them do their job. I remember learning that from Wilson. And then moving on with Vin, where it was a very high pressure situation, but he was always able to step back and check in with you on things. But there was a relentless push, and I appreciated that from that mentor, and I still get that from him as well. And other people that I've had along the way, from bosses, and assistant coaches that I've learned from, I think that it's hugely important to recognize that you're trying to build a little bit more than just coming to work and you coach the jumpers and I'll coach the distance kids, and then we'll get together on Saturdays, but that we have to care about each other in that process too. And my Penn State crew, I think we were together for 9 years out of my 15. And we were hugely successful when we caught our stride with that same group of people. And we did a lot of fun stuff. We used to do a rotating dinner party, once a month at someone else's house. We had different themes. We we challenged each other. We are always, it was always a challenge at practice, like who could throw the shot put further, or who can run a 60 faster. Not that I participated, make sure they stayed healthy. But those kinds of things. And just have the investment across the board on what we were trying to accomplish. And I'm really proud of my coaching tree, all the way from the athletes that have gone on into coaching to my assistant coaches that have become head coaches, and they're doing amazing things. At Tennessee, I had an opportunity to work with the most brilliant minds in coaching. I'm really the best coaches out there, and you can see what they're doing with their programs right now as well. And I just really have appreciated the honest conversations that it takes into supporting each other and learning from each other. And I feel fortunate here as well. I inherited Rich Miller, who's been here at UConn. I think he was here 30 some years before I got here. Selwyn Maxwell, who's also an alum of the program, to really, take a successful program and learn the history from them. And we roll from there. I also would say that I don't micromanage. I stick my nose in where I need to, and I make sure that people are bought in. And sometimes you have to do that in some tough love on some stuff. But for the most part, I want coaches that can coach and be able to do work their magic, as long as that stays in the positive and rolling forward and asking for help when you need it. I think trying to create an environment where people ask to collaborate is really big in coaching. Yeah. I hope I answered that well, but yeah. And mentoring is a big deal. I just love to hear from my formers that, what about this? What about that? How do I deal with this? I have a young coach that was coaching women for the first time, and he was calling quite a bit about, what about this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a big one. So, it's kind of fun to hear that the young people again dealing with the same stuff we dealt with way back when. So.
Yeah.
Some things don't change.
Beth, you mentioned earlier about recruiting and your first class. You recruited, I think you said 7, all Americans. I'd love to hear a little bit about the philosophy that you use, maybe like values of how do you find the right student athletes for your program? Is there, not to give your secret sauce away, but I'd love to hear a little bit about the process that you go through.
Yeah, I think my style is, we're looking for the right match. And it goes back to the same thing with younger coaches that are trying to, move through the coaching world. Where you are, you have a certain young person that's going to work well for you. Right. When I was at Southeast Missouri, I recruited Corey Immels. Corey Immels was, Foot Locker champ his senior year. I recruited that kid hard. I talked to him every week. Back then you could talk one day a week, and recruited him hard through the years. And he was such a nice young man. He just kept having the conversations until he finally was like, Coach, I've got to move on, and let me down, as easily as he could. But that's when I learned. I was like, okay, yeah, that was a big reach. That was beyond me. And as much as I enjoyed it, it was a good check into what works at this school and what works with my style. I think one of the mistakes you make too is just chasing a mark, or just chasing a kid that, has the big time, and you think, oh, it's going to change my roster. If they don't train the way that you feel comfortable and those kinds of things, then you have a hard road to turn. So best to take what works for you and adapt that into your system that fits, because comfort for a young person at school is huge.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you feel like you have a guiding core set of principles, like when you're recruiting those athletes and recruiting a staff even, or do you feel like your core principles or values are changed? I think so many coaches, they don't even know what their values are to a degree. They don't know what their non-negotiables are till maybe later on. Like, where in your coaching journey do you think you established that, and how has that changed?
No, absolutely. I think, you have to know yourself. How far are you willing to go with regards to a situation? Okay. And, I won't go past the line. So I just know that about myself. And so in recruiting coaches, you have to have a group of people that will commit to that as well. Like, we're not going to cross the line. Like, we're just not going to do it. Right. So we're going to either lose the kid or lose the situation or lose the meet or whatever it is. If you're willing to go across that line, because I won't. And at the end of the day, that's how we'll roll. The delivery of those messages has certainly changed from the years. You start off as a young coach and you're, a lot of energy and a lot of, we're going to do it this way. And this is the way we do it. And this is my style. To when I remember moving from Penn State to Tennessee, I was hiring people and making sure they understood working for me as a challenge, not from the perspective that I thought I was a challenge, from the perspective of having a female head coach. You're going to get asked things that you wouldn't get asked, or you haven't been asked, and you're going to have to decide how you answer those things. And it was very true. Every coach that I hired came back a month or two later and said, man, people really ask some weird stuff about you,
Was it the recruits that asked stuff or other coaches?
No, it's coaches. Recruiting, I found recruiting, especially when I became the men's coach, it was 2006 at Penn State. I found the student athletes had no problem with me being a female coach. It was sometimes the coaches and the parents that were kind of like, oh, wait, you're going to coach them, and those kinds of questions. And you just roll with what you got and just don't let them see you sweat. That was always my mind. Like, don't let them see it make me irritated or upset. And just continue to produce and produce and produce. I haven't changed that much. I really do work hard to find the right match of the person that I'm hiring as a coach, and then also to try and find the right match as a young person that's going to come in and experience 4 or 5 years with us, and be successful. That's what you want. You want them to be successful in all elements. So once you have that down, then it's pretty easy to say to your assistant coach, okay, that kid, that's not going to work. Yeah. Even though they might be gung ho and they're excited, but it's like, dude, they're not going to match up in this, in this environment or that environment that we've been in before. Yeah. And just know your strengths and limitations of your school, your strengths and limitations of your staff, and what your goals are. What are the strengths and limitations of your goals? It's a conference, nationals. Where is it? What are you trying to achieve? And then find the right matches for those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. You mentioned your coaching tree. I'll stick with the athletes for one more second. I love this question. Thinking about how your athletes will remember being coached by you. What are the things that you would like the student athletes to remember about being coached by you?
I'm 60 now, and at 60, I find myself in a much more of I hope they feel what I feel, because I really, care about them and engage with them and know them so well. And I think I always have, but it's even more important for me for them to walk out the door saying, man, I love old coach, it's awesome. But it's ebbed and flowed for the years. But I do have a great group of alums, both men and women, that I stay up with. It's almost, I think I'm on Facebook and Insta's way more with my formers than I am with my futures. I keep saying I got to be on with recruits more because these alums are killing me. But it's just awesome to see, and I hope they remember that I was willing to push them. I often say I'm not your mom, I'm not your aunt, I'm not your sister. Like we, as a coach, we play a different role, and and being a teammate is not having to be in a family. It's about a unique role that you get a certain amount of time in your life to be a teammate and a coach. And our job is to, I say this to the young people, they like it. I say our job is to inflict stress. We have to inflict stress physically. We have to inflict stress emotionally and mentally for you to pursue your goals. And that sometimes gets confused with frustration or disappointment or not willingness to understand how that is implied. So it takes a lot of conversation, but it's simplified that way. Like, we're not necessarily here just to hold your hand and say, good job. We're here to, I would be letting them down if I wasn't pushing them to their potential at all times.
Absolutely.
How you did that in the 90s, how you do it in today's are different, but same. You just have to, and I always used to say this too, it's different with the men and the women. A guy comes off a race and they sit in it for a long time. They're disappointed. They're hard to connect with. They want to go hammer the next week of training, all of those things. Whereas the women, it takes about a 24-hour cycle. They say, hey, I'm frustrated, blah, blah. And then we move on to the next one. We're forward thinking a bit more than the guys can be. And I've had to learn to like move them out of that element versus get frustrated with them for being in that element. So there's just a lot of things you have to live and learn with, but you have to adapt your style to those things, but not lose your principles in it either.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really unique point that I think I get frustrated, and many coaches do that, as I think you've done an incredible job of navigating this persona that the female coaches are supposed to be the mom, right? We're supposed to always make them feel better, and we're supposed to give them that cheer, and we're not their mom, like I have my own kids. We are their coach, and the expectation shouldn't be different from any other male coach that you would expect, but there's always this other layer from the athletes sometimes, and maybe even assistant coaches, that, oh, we're supposed to be the nice ones. We're supposed to, or we see too often women are hired on staff just to handle the emotions on the team. So the head coach doesn't have to. So from your perspective, how have you, I mean, what are you seeing? What do you think women coaches can do a better job from learning from your own experiences and navigating that women provide such as good of coaching and feedback in their own way, and knowing where to push the dials and what points, but we are not the mom, and we are not meant to only hold the tissues.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think one of the things that I intentionally tried to do early in my career was to maintain a head coach status, because the title makes a difference. And it's a title that they definitely see it as, okay, well, Coach is the boss here, and she's going to manage it the way she's going to manage it. It's always a navigation, so they can make one happy, make one unhappy in the same conversation, because it's just the way it hits them. But I think that that's a piece of what I've been fortunate on, and not everybody is. So what do you do? I think it's okay to be emotional. I'm very emotional, and I tell my team I'm emotional. And I remember back in my younger days, especially, a young person would have a performance that maybe they're disappointed in. Maybe we were all expecting more. And I would just basically say, you need to go cool down, and we'll talk afterwards. Because in that moment, I was emotional, and I was going to regret what I might say. And, so it actually gave me time to find out what I need to say correctly to this young person or people, or team in cross country. So I think knowing yourself a little bit, and maybe your captain's group, maybe it's the kids that have been around you longer, they got you, they've got you figured out, to remind them to teach the younger kids that, hey, coach ain't here to just make it all, rainbows and happy. She's here to make us better. And if she doesn't try to make us better, we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. So sometimes she's going to come a little snippy on you, or a little short on you, or, but you got to understand her. So I've always tried those things, and tried to have my assistant coaches definitely have my back. And I think that's critical too, where you have a staff that can explain better. Like, hey, coaches, she's not just going to hold your hand and make you feel better. She's upset that this happened, or that happened, or these things are happening. But she's got your back, and we've got your back, and, go back in and talk to her again. You guys will figure it out. It's a unique role, and everybody builds their team environment differently. So I'm not saying mine is better. It's what's worked for me. But I've tried not to ever really go down too hard on the family thing as much as being a team. And that's just unique. You don't get that again. When you move on and you have your family and all that, or you have your career and your jobs, people call your team, but it's not what we're doing. It's unique. So I try and stay in that zone, and not get caught up in too far the other things. But at the same time, you're stepping in and out and around all the different roles all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's such a good, important reminder for young coaches too. It's, you don't just take any job, of being very intentional about the staff you join, right? Of where that support's going to be, because the athletes feel it. They know when a staff is cohesive. Just as you talked about your team dinners, they know when there's some animosity, and sometimes they're going to play that good cop, bad cop role. And that just really create some cracks in the foundation as young coaches, like really doing your homework of who you're going to work for is really critical in order to put you in a position to be the best coach you can.
Yeah.
I love the idea of using the captains, but also your assistant coaches to read the room, get that EQ a little bit, as well as distributing the message. I used to talk about our captains being the conduit to the team, like both ways, right? Getting information to and from the team, and then having that staff have your back, I think, is so important for building the cohesiveness within the team. I think the students, I used to call them human lie detector tests. Like, they know when things are not when things aren't right. They definitely pick it up before anybody else. I was thinking about the non-negotiables that you had just mentioned, and if there is one.
Yeah, no. Okay, so non-negotiables, I think I'm never going to mistreat anybody. You know, you might get mad at them. You might have frustration with them. They might be disappointed in them, all of those things, but I'm not going to mistreat them. That's and I can't let my assistant coach derail either. Like, it just isn't, it's not going to happen. The others, we won't cheat. Like, we're not going to cheat the system. We're not going to cheat the rules. There's just no way. If we make mistakes, we'll own them like that. I really like people that can own their mistakes, because in this job where your head is spinning 24/7, you're going to make mistakes. Oh, I forgot to do that, or I messed that up, or I really didn't realize I was breaking a rule on that. You know, just own them and move forward. I also think that some of the non-negotiables is just, you know, being a teacher versus just an enforcer, maybe. I don't know what else you would be, but I've always tried to hire people that can teach and teach from the ground up, so that, you know, an athlete is getting better. It's just the progression is there. You can't be perfect, of course, but that's the goal, you know, to teach and to make them better as they go. Some of the other non-negotiables is to be a good and polite person. So we're not going to allow a student athlete to, you know, take an interview and get crazy and do, you know, say bad things, or, you know, threaten or challenge stuff. Like, we're going to promote to our young people the way they should promote themselves and our program. I think it also is just being collaborative. The one thing I always say is that I'll make the hard decision. Like, if we have to decide something, I will make that decision, but I'd rather have everybody's input to make a good decision. I'm not going to maybe always please you, but if I know your position, so my staff gets that, my upperclassmen get that, you know, so, you know, even to the minimal levels of things, you know, like, hey, we're going to go to Carrabba's for dinner, but my captain comes and says, hey, we'd rather, you know, so I'll listen to it, you know. So I try to promote those things too, because it's not negotiable to think I know everything. It's only the buck stops here. It really is a collaboration of an experience that we should all enjoy the process. We work too hard not to have fun. And I guess that would be one of my non-negotiables. You better be ready to have some fun. Like, we have a lot of fun. I feel like I have a lot of fun every day. And people that don't know how to have fun, like, come on. We work too hard not to have fun. So
exactly. So powerful. Thank you for that.
You've done this, as you mentioned, and I don't want to date you, for a long time and done it and been very successful. Our sport of track and field is really unique because there's not much of an off season, especially at the level that you've been at for consistently. Your off season is very little. How have you maintained such a high level of success? I think too many coaches don't understand the importance of rest or how to manage their time in a way to provide them that longevity. They'll go till burnout, or they lose that version of the best version of themselves as a coach. What have you figured out for you has worked in allowing you to have such longevity at such a high level?
I've felt the exhaustion, and I call it the high intensity come down. The end of the season, I say we get hicked, you know, and I've been saying it since 2000 Olympic trials. And we came back from the Olympic trials, and I was just cooked. The high intensity come down, you know, it was like almost sad because the seasons were over. So you have to know yourself, and you have to know the ebb and flow of the 3 seasons. And you can't get frustrated by that. You have to just accept that, you know, others don't have to work 3 seasons. Others don't have to be in the office all the time, all that kind of stuff. And if you know that, then it doesn't feel it's like, oh, this is kind of crappy. But when you know it, then you accept it and you go and bring your best every time you can. So that's how I've always thought of it, is like, okay, I know I'm a track coach. I wish I was a softball coach. I wish I was making more money as a basketball coach. I wish I had, an off season where I really just didn't even have to come in the office, but we don't have that. So why wish about something I don't have? Stay in the moment and stay having fun with it, and recognizing that every day gives you an opportunity to make someone else better. And that really fulfills my heart too, because even if you come in and it's nothing more than just having a good day together and thinking about the future or whatever it might be, talking to a young person about their summer job and making them feel valued, those are good days. Even if they're not moving the dial to a championship, they're moving the dial for that person at that time. And that might be all you have to give that day because you're tuckered out. I would say for me personally, it's been my husband. He has been the person that has not only stood behind me and supported me, but also, especially in the first 20 years, he kind of had the finger in the middle of my back pushing me. Mm. So, it was like support, but also like, keep going, don't doubt, don't get frustrated, just keep going and push your way through it. And he's also that person that can give me great feedback, but never put a seed of doubt in my mind on a decision I've made or a situation I'm in. He never puts a seed of doubt, and I've learned a lot from the value of that. Those are kind of my mainstays. I vacation well, so I definitely get away from the office. We went to Kauai for, I think, 11 days and over Thanksgiving break and then some. And, we have a great opportunity up here on the coast. And so we disappear as much as we can. And, we take vacation seriously, and we disappear a lot. It's fun. But at the same time, you have to accept it. And this isn't a knock on one. I'll just say one school I was at, since they're still in the same situation. Very hard travel. It was extremely hard travel. A small airport in town, had to go an hour to 2 to 3 hours away to get out of town. And for the number of years I was there, I never gave into it. I was like, oh, it's not so bad. We're driving to the city. Oh, we no worries. The flight will be only one stop, not two this time. I kept making it positive until I left, and I went, oh my.
Yeah.
My life got so much better without that travel. But I knew if I gave in, I would turn grumpy about it. So I was like, I'm not going to give into it. It's great. It's fine. I can't believe I did that for that long.
Well, it's the power of the mindset there, right? The power of the mindset of like just evaluating the circumstance you're in and putting a positive light on it. And then I loved hearing about the support network that you have as well. So those are super powerful messages, both from taking a vacation when it's earned, making sure you unplug, having that support network at home, obviously, and then just keeping that positive mindset in order to power through some difficult challenges. That's super powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd say one more thing is I take a lot of value even in the non-superstars. In every team you have them.
Yeah.
Even with, my Tennessee teams were rock stars. These kids are doing things I didn't think were humanly possible, but others were on the team and taking value in, their PR, their experience. It's really fun to see a kid achieve at their level if you slow down and allow that. And I think a lot of coaches won't do that. And so they lose these kids that could become powerful people. My coach did that. I was never a rock star on my team, but he took the time to care. If I walked in and said, man, I'm having a bad day, my boyfriend broke up, he took the time to talk to you about it. Like, he took the time to care about what you're doing. And I learned that from a long time in coaching of celebrate every level of kid, because not everybody can be a superstar. And that makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Because your superstars are very stressful and the others are very fun. So,
That's awesome. Is there any advice you'd give maybe somebody that's breaking into the profession that, you wish you had known when you were starting?
I think it's a couple of things. Never assume you know it all. It's a big red flag when you think you know everything and you try to solve all your own problems. Be collaborative. Sit around the table and listen to the stories. I did that early on, and I have just so many dear friends that are now retired that were rock star coaches in their day that I can meet and listen to and hang out with, because when they were 40 and 50 and 60, they were living this, and I listened at the table, and I thought that was the coolest thing you could do. So listen at the table, ask for help, be collaborative, and remember that it's a we, not I. I think all coaches feel that when people are we, and not, it's the same as when you say to the kids, don't be about me, be about team.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same with the coaching staff. Talk in the we, represent in the we, because if it's my athletes or I did or I achieved or my group, it's really a divisive language, and you want it to be a, you know what we can do this season, what we can achieve. And I really love that we work together. You know, those kinds of inclusiveness as a young person goes a long ways.
Yep. I learned that the hard way. One of my bosses, I had said something about my team, and nope, I only did that once.
Yep. And it's so funny because most everybody's come from being an athlete where they're a part of a team.
Right.
You know, so it's like, why is it about you? It's about our team here as a staff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As you kind of move into this next phase, you've got some projects that I know you're working on. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about, as far as, you know, how do you see yourself in this next phase as far as being a mentor for other women, the importance of it, like where we are now versus where you started, and how do we keep pushing the needle forward so that way our athletes have the best leaders possible?
Yeah. And I will say, you know, women in sport, in our sport, like you said, our numbers are still low, but they're so much higher than when I started. And it's so impressive to see what women are doing and how well we're doing. We're represented at every level now, and they're doing that with so much more support that didn't used to be there. And so, yet a long ways to go. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but I am impressed with our women. And over the last, kind of always in the back of my mind is what am I going to do to give back, and to continue to help. I don't want to just be that coach that, you know, did their stint and then disappeared and went. So I started 3 years ago an LLC that's called Let's Go, because that's all we ever yell is let's go, you know, so it's perfect. And it's really for women with women. And it's an opportunity. I'm starting with just a summer 1-day seminar. Last year was our first one. This year is our second one. I've got a team of women in coaching and in business, and in sport, athletes as well, that are, you know, trying to, have another avenue towards connection, collaboration, empowerment, and facing kind of the taboo topics that women face specifically in sport, in the workplace, and in life. It's a day where we come together and look at the strategies of how we can overcome those things and move through the systems that are there and collaborate together and build that empowerment that we need to be able to be better leaders back out in whatever it is that we're doing. And so that's been really rewarding for me. I've been having a lot of fun with my colleagues that are with me. We have some great ideas. I think when I finally hang up the stopwatch, I'm hoping it'll grow even more thorough to some, you know, weekend retreats and that kind of thing. But right now it's Let's Go. And we're doing a midsummer summit this July in stores. And would love to have any of the women out there that feel like some of these topics that keep surfacing. If you're a woman and you've sat at a table and you've said something or you've pitched something and it got missed, but then it comes back from someone else and as a great idea, it's a great topic, right? I feel like my whole life I've been like, didn't I just say that one too? You know? And so, and just ways to navigate all of the things that can be frustrating, so that it doesn't take away from the opportunity of your career flourishing. And that's really the messaging that I have. So if anybody's interested, check us out. Let's go.
We'll link it in the show notes. Is there a website, or is it on your Instagram? It's on both. So there's Instagram, Let's Go, and it's just all one word with CCC. It's Camps, Clinics, and Consulting is what the CCC is. So yeah, I'd love to expand it. And that's for athletes, coaches, and women in business.
Yes.
And the date this summer is July
17th.
17th, 2026. I'm excited to go. Registered. I missed last year, but really looking forward to going and getting a crew to go with us.
Yay,
Awesome.
good.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Let's go ccc.com.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing all about it. You've given us so much to think about. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for doing this. I mean, these are the things, and I know in talking with Taryn over maybe a year or so ago, she had the vision of getting this started and doing this. And I love that people are willing to see those kinds of dreams come true. So I'm glad you two have connected, and this is now in the makings. It's
there
awesome.
we go.
I appreciate it. Yeah.